right into it because a massive story is breaking right now. We're seeing a sudden and honestly a huge military escalation in the Middle East. For years, this has been the scenario everyone's been warning about, and it looks like it's finally here, pulling in Iran, Israel, and of course the United States. And we're getting confirmations now directly from the Israeli government to their own media. A coordinated military operation with the United States is underway against Iran. And look, this is not just some small, isolated strike. We're talking about missiles hitting targets in Tehran and other locations as we speak. As you'd expect, Israel has already declared a national state of emergency, telling its citizens to get ready for what comes next. Okay, so that's the what that's happening. But the really big question, the one we all have, is why now? What tipped the scales? Well, this strike isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a direct response to Iran's nuclear program hitting a new and, for many, a very dangerous milestone. So before we go any further, let's just quickly break down what we're talking about here. Uranium enrichments. It's basically like refining a raw material. At low levels, you get fuel for nuclear power plants. But if you keep refining it, keep pushing those levels higher and higher, you eventually get the core material for a nuclear bomb. And this is the number that has set off alarm bells everywhere. 60%. Iran has now enriched uranium to 60% purity. Now, you might hear that and think, well, that's not weapons grade, right? And you'd be correct. But here's what the experts know. Getting to 60% means the hardest part of the job is already finished. And this is a perfect way to think about it. It's like a marathon. Going from natural uranium up to 20%, that's the long, grueling jog. It takes forever. Getting from 20% to 60% is a massive technical leap. But, and this is the critical part, that final step, going from 60% to the 90% you need for a weapon, that's just a short, fast sprint to the finish line. By hitting 60%, Iran is telling the world it's right there. And listen, this isn't just speculation. The world's nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, basically confirmed everyone's worst fears in a recent confidential report. They found that Iran has moved this 60% enriched material deep into an underground, fortified tunnel complex. And they didn't mince words, calling it a nuclear bomb-grade stockpile. You don't use language like that unless you are seriously concerned. So okay, the nuclear program explains the timing. But to really understand the Israeli side of this, we kind of have to zoom in on one person. For Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this is personal. This is the climax of a mission he's been on for decades. And this timeline just lays it all out, doesn't it? His critics always point out how the deadlines have shifted over the years. In the 90s, a nuclear Iran was a few years away. By 2012, it was 6 months. Then in 2015, a few weeks. But look past the dates. The core message, the singular focus, has been the same for 30 years. Iran will not get a nuclear bomb on his watch. He has basically said time and again that a nuclear Iran is a threat to Israel's very existence. He's called it a headache he absolutely refuses to pass on to the next generation. So for him, launching this strike is keeping a promise he's been making his entire political life. Now, let's pivot to the other major player in all this, the United States. Their involvement opens up this huge strategic question that Washington, and frankly the whole world, is now grappling with. What is the real goal here? And it really boils down to this, doesn't it? Is the plan to just go in, destroy some key nuclear sites, set their program back, and get out? Deterrence. Or is this the first shot in a much bigger war aimed at toppling the government in Iran entirely? I mean, on the one hand, you hear politicians like Senator J.D. Vance say, whatever we do, it'll be fast and then we're leaving. But then you look at what the military is actually doing on the ground. You don't move aircraft carriers and put 5,000 sailors on standby for a quick in-and-out operation. That kind of deployment, that looks like you're getting ready for a much longer fight. And you can hear the gravity of the situation in the president's own words. He's acknowledged there's a big decision to make. And when he calls the Iranian leadership very difficult people, it's pretty clear he's signaling that the time for talking might be over and the military options are very much on the table. But amidst all this geopolitical chess, there's a really tragic human side to this story, and it adds this whole other complicated and frankly painful layer to the timing of these strikes. It's all about the citizen-led protests that were happening inside Iran. Just think about this number for a second. According to President Trump's recent public statements, the Iranian regime killed an estimated 32,000 of its own people to crush those pro-democracy protests in just the last few months. And that's what makes the timing of this military action so gut-wrenching. Because during those protests, Iranians were reportedly in the streets begging for support from the West. They were hoping an intervention could weaken the regime and give their movement a chance. But nothing happened. No help came. And now, after that movement has been brutally stamped out, the strikes begin. It just forces you to ask some really tough questions about what the true goals of this intervention are.
So where do we go from here? Because let's be very clear, an attack of this size is not going to be the end of it. The question isn't if Iran will hit back. It's just a matter of how and where.
And the response is likely to be what experts call asymmetric. That means Iran probably won't try to fight a conventional head-on war. Instead, think surprise attacks. Think hitting softer targets like U.S. embassies or other American assets scattered all over the Middle East. Or they could launch missiles directly at Israel. Whatever they choose, this conflict is almost guaranteed to spill over Iran's borders.
And that leaves us right here with the one massive unanswered question. Was this the decisive strike that, as Netanyahu hoped, put an end to Iran's nuclear ambitions for good? Or was this the match that just lit the fuse on a much bigger, much more destructive regional war? Right now, nobody knows the answer.